Out here in the Wild West, a man's past rides with him.
She broke into his barn. He said, "Guess you found my heart, too." She broke into his barn that night, looking for shelter, or maybe a reason to keep breathing. But when the light hit her face, he didn't reach for his gun. He reached for mercy. "Guess you found my heart, too," he said. She came a stranger, cold, hungry, and tired of running. He gave her warmth and a place where silence finally felt safe. When danger came, he stood in front of her, not to save his barn, but to save her soul. By sunset, she no longer needed to hide. She broke a door open that night and walked straight into love. Before we begin, take a moment to comment the name of your city. Where are you watching from tonight? And when the story ends, don't forget to rate it from 0 to 10. Late 19th century, the harsh winter of the Wild West. A small, lonely farm stood at the edge of town, the roof of its barn dusted with a thin layer of snow, dry wind whistling through the old wooden slats. The warm yellow glow of an oil lamp flickered against the darkness of the prairie, creating a scene both isolated and softly comforting. Norah Hayes, 25, fleeing a harsh life, shivered as she clutched the wooden beam, forcing open the barn door in search of shelter. The door burst open, and she tumbled into the hay, gasping, her heart pounding. Ethan Ryder, a 38-year-old cowboy, sitting nearby, sprang to his feet at the sound. Instead of anger, he simply smiled, his voice low and warm. "Guess you found my barn, and my heart too." The moment startled Norah, and then slowly she realized she no longer felt fear. For the first time in many days of running, she felt safe. The audience immediately senses the striking contrast, the bitter cold outside the barn and the warm refuge within, the danger of the wild beyond, and the quiet protection of the lone cowboy. Ethan's calm, composed demeanor and silent kindness strike the viewer's heart, stirring strong emotions from the very first instant and drawing them fully into the story. The rhythm of the Wild West, the wind whistling through the wooden slats, the warm scent of hay, and the soft glow of the oil lamp all blend together to open a story not only about survival, but about second chances, human kindness, and the healing power of lonely hearts. Part 1. The Stormy Escape. The night in the Wild West was bone-chilling. The wind howled across the empty prairie, carrying the scent of damp earth while light snow dusted the roof of the old barn, making each wooden plank creak and groan in the still night. The moon had long set, leaving only the flickering yellow glow of the oil lamp on the barn as a fragile beacon in the vast darkness. Norah Hayes, 25, fleeing a harsh life, ran along the snow-covered trail, her hands purple from the cold as they clutched her thin coat, heart pounding from both fear and frostbite. A strong gust nearly made her fall. Strands of hair whipped across her face, her eyes glistening with tears and snow. When she glimpsed the dim light filtering through the barn door, a spark of hope ignited within her. She rushed forward, hands prying at the rotting wood. The wind roared in her ears, blowing the door wide open, exhausted. Norah slipped onto the hard hay, her chest tightening from pain and cold. Her hands trembled as they clutched the hay, breathing ragged, lips whispering something unintelligible. Everything around her was cold and threatening, yet the open door felt like a promise of survival. Inside the barn, Ethan Ryder, a 38-year-old cowboy used to solitude, sprang to his feet at the sound. Holding his oil lamp, the light cast over his solemn, yet warm eyes. He looked at Norah without anger or rebuke, standing for a moment as if weighing every small movement of the girl before him. In that instant, his compassion was clear not through words or grand gestures, but through silence and a protective gaze. "Guess you found my barn, and my heart too." His low, steady voice rang out in the quiet, startling Norah. She looked up into Ethan's eyes, dancing in the lamplight, and realized for the first time in many days of running that she no longer felt fear. The space around her was still filled with cold wind, but inside the barn, an indescribable warmth enveloped her trembling body. The audience immediately senses the tension of the night, the biting wind, the threat outside, the fragile door, and Norah's exhaustion. Yet, simultaneously, the unexpected safety from Ethan's actions makes their hearts race with both suspense and relief. The bitter cold outside contrasted with the warmth of the lamp, and the quiet strength of the cowboy creates a powerful tension, drawing listeners in from the very first line. Ethan stepped forward, placing the lamp beside the hay. His calloused hands extended calmly to assure Norah she was welcome to stay. No judgment, no harsh questioning, just simple, profound protection. His gaze followed her carefully, each movement deliberate. But in that silence lay the unspoken message, "You are safe here." Norah remained still, her warm breath mingling with the frigid air, hands clutching the edge of an old blanket in the hay, trying to balance exhaustion with the unexpected comfort. The audience feels the emotional waves from tension and anxiety to relief and awe. The surrounding cold and wind remain, yet both her heart and the viewers' hearts recognize a small miracle sometimes. In the harshest Wild West, a single act of kindness, a protective gaze, is enough to begin healing. Ethan spoke no further. He simply stepped closer, draping a blanket over her shoulders, his hand touching her just enough to transfer warmth without startling her. Norah exhaled softly, eyes misted, and in that moment, the audience perceives the quiet power of compassion, unassuming, unobtrusive, yet enough to make hearts stir and connect deeply with the story and the characters. The Wild West night remained cold, but for the first time, Norah felt she was no longer alone. Ethan stood there, tall and protective in the soft yellow light, both a guardian and a pillar of hope. The initial tension of the storm and external dangers now merged with this unexpected safety, forming a gentle yet emotionally weighty climax that opens the story as one of healing in the harsh frontier. From the very first moment, the audience is swept into the strong emotional current: loneliness, danger, hope, and quiet human kindness. The stillness of the scene, the flickering light, Norah's cold breath, and Ethan's measured steps all combine to create an opening that is both dramatic and deeply moving, compelling listeners to pause, absorb, and follow these two characters on the journey ahead. Part 2. Fire and Shelter. Inside the barn. The fire flickered and danced across the old wooden beams, warming the quiet space filled with hay dust. The warm yellow glow of the flames contrasted sharply with the biting cold outside, where snow still fell lightly on the roof. The air was thick with the scent of hay, smoke, and horse leather, creating a sense of familiarity and a rare feeling of safety. Ethan Ryder carefully placed his oil lamp beside the hay, then stepped toward Norah, who was still shivering, arms wrapped tightly around herself. He gently lifted the old blanket and draped it over her shoulders, his touch just enough to transfer warmth without startling her. Next, he brought a bowl of hot water and a piece of hard bread, placing them before her with a calm but protective gaze. Every gesture was deliberate, as if to say, "You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to trust for the first time after so many days of loneliness." Norah exhaled softly, her eyes misted, feeling the warmth spread from the blanket, from the flickering light of the fire, and from Ethan's steady hand. In that moment, her heart softened. Some of the fear and fatigue melted away, making room for trust and the comforting sense of being cared for. The audience can clearly feel this tenderness, sensing the beginning of healing woven through every word and action. Outside, the wind continued to howl, but inside the barn, everything was calm, warm, and safe. Ethan asked no questions, offered no judgment, only quietly observed the trembling girl before him, silently granting her shelter, a measure of trust and hope. The emotional wave of this scene rises as the audience moves from the cold, fear, and loneliness outside to a feeling of safety, protection, and recognition of human kindness. Ethan's gentle care and protective presence convey the story's healing power, highlighting the channel's USP, the Wild West, where kindness, compassion, and simple love can mend every wound. Norah slowly picked up the bread, taking careful bites, eyes still wary, but heart softening. Ethan sat beside her, watching, his gaze steady but never intrusive. The space glowed in warm yellow light, the fire crackling softly. Ethan's calm breathing together creating a tender moment, a gentle yet powerful emotional climax. For the first time after days of cold and solitude, both Norah and the audience feel a profound sense of safety. Viewers pause, absorbing every breath, every gesture, every exchanged glance. They realize the story is not just about surviving a harsh winter night, but about a heart opening, trust being restored, and the first steps toward healing. This is the moment audiences begin to immerse fully in a healing Western story, where compassion and love ignite a spark of warmth in the frozen Wild West. Part 3. Morning Light. The dawn quietly broke, golden rays piercing through the gaps of the old wooden barn, falling on dust motes floating in the air. The space was silent, with only the soft rustle of the wind across the prairie and the steady breathing of the horses. The early morning in the Wild West carried a rare sense of peace, yet the lingering cold of the winter night remained. The gentle yellow light fell on Norah's tired yet lively face, highlighting the tension lines from the night. Her eyes still misted, her breath slightly rapid from the lingering chill. After her first night of protection, Norah stood up, rolled up her long sleeves, and began helping Ethan groom the panting horse. She carefully stroked each strand of hair, hands trembling, yet every movement showed her attentive care. Ethan stood nearby, silently observing, his eyes deep yet gentle, recognizing the sincerity hidden beneath the girl's exhaustion and guardedness. His silence was not indifference, but a way to give her the space to express herself and to feel trust for the first time. Later, Norah picked up scattered bundles of hay, tidying the barn floor, moving with steady rhythm, eyes sparkling in the morning light. Ethan exhaled softly, feeling an unusual sensation, as if after years of solitude, he had finally encountered someone who could touch his heart. Light streaming through the dust created pale golden streaks on both their faces, rendering the ordinary scene cinematic, as if every gesture and breath was part of a living painting. When Norah bent down to soothe the horse, her gaze met Ethan's. He smiled softly, without words, but the look in his eyes carried full acknowledgement she had not only found shelter for the night, but possessed a heart sincere enough to open to trust. The audience immediately feels the gentle yet deep connection forming between them. These ordinary moments, filled with meaning, turn simple gestures into symbols of kindness, sincerity, and the capacity to open one's heart after pain. The emotional wave rises when Ethan bends to pat the horse's saddle, their hands touching briefly as they lift a bundle of hay together. A sense of hope begins to bloom from prolonged loneliness, from cold nights, and the fear of abandonment. They now find companionship in each other. The audience can feel warmth seeping into the heart, gentle yet compelling, like the first sunlight dispelling the chill of the prairie. The sound of footsteps, the clatter of hooves, and the rustling of hay under Norah's hands combined with the soft golden light to create a vivid, sensory-rich scene. Every detail allows listeners to feel the rhythm of life in the Wild West, where the cold outside contrasts with the warmth within human hearts. This moment becomes the foundation for the story's development, showing that even in the harshest environments, sincerity and kindness can shift emotions and spark hope. The feeling of safety and tenderness, combined with Ethan's openness, elevates the emotional intensity from suspense and anxiety to calm, hope, and trust. This dawn is not only an awakening to a new day, but an opening of hearts to each other, an unfreezing of hearts after past wounds. Every simple gesture lifting hay, stroking the horse's mane, exchanging glances becomes a symbol of healing, allowing the audience to deeply empathize with the characters and the rhythm of the Wild West. As dawn spreads further, warm light covers their faces, the first sunbeams of hope. The audience witnesses in this silence and simplicity a subtle emotional climax, a gentle yet enduring connection, unexpected safety, and trust being built. This is the moment they begin to realize that even in the untamed West, lonely hearts can find light and hope, and that each small act carries the power to heal. Part 4. Threat at the Gate. The quiet early morning of the Wild West suddenly became tense and suffocating. The first rays of sunlight had yet to warm the land, while wind whistled through the wooden slats, sending hay dust swirling inside the barn. From the gate came the thunder of hooves pounding the cracked, dry ground, shaking the barn floor. A group of 3 bounty hunters appeared, their faces hardened, eyes stern, daggers glinting beneath wide-brimmed hats. They stopped at the barn door, voices low and threatening. "We're looking for a thief. Red-haired girl, carries a scar." Norah Hayes backed toward the hay, heart pounding, mouth dry, hands gripping the edge of the door. Fear seeped into every gesture, every breath. For the first time, she sensed true danger, not from the harsh winter, but from people, from cold, authoritative eyes. The audience immediately feels the pressure of the moment. One mistake, one rash action, and the consequences could be severe. Ethan Ryder, the 38-year-old cowboy, rose to his feet. His tall, broad shadow silently blocked the barn doorway, arms wide like an invisible shield between Norah and the threat. He stepped slowly but deliberately, calloused hand brushing the colt at his hip, but he did not draw it. His gaze was cold, steady, unwavering, fixed on the strangers. In a deep, firm voice, he said, "She's under my roof. That means she's under my word." This was a powerful emotional beat. Ethan's courage and sense of responsibility not only protected Norah, but demonstrated the loyalty and integrity of a true cowboy. The audience felt admiration, hearts racing with the rhythm of hooves, drawn into his determined stare and slow, deliberate movements. Ethan stood as an anchor amid the chaos, calming Norah's fear. The bounty hunters hesitated, slowed their approach, no one daring to move closer under Ethan's unwavering gaze. Each passing second felt endless, the sound of hooves increasingly tense, echoing the audience's own heartbeat in the confrontation. Ethan did not shout, did not command. He relied on his presence, his calm, and natural authority to neutralize the threat. The audience feels the striking contrast from immediate danger to the safety one upright, courageous human can provide. Norah stood huddled behind the hay, heart pounding, yet her eyes began to glimmer with trust. With a single act, Ethan conveyed that she was no longer alone, that in the perilous Wild West, there was someone brave enough to protect her heart. The audience experiences peak suspense, danger is real, yet hope and trust simultaneously emerge, tense and tender at once. After a moment, the bounty hunters withdrew, knowing it was futile to confront a fearless man. Norah broke down in tears, washing away days of lingering fear. Ethan stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. No words, yet radiating warmth and safety. He smiled softly, eyes steady and deep. You broke into my barn and somehow fixed my peace. The emotional wave reaches its peak in this moment from extreme fear and pressure. The audience feels safety, healing, and the first stirrings of hope. They experience both high suspense and deep empathy with Norah and Ethan, making the story compelling and dramatic from the very first minute. The surroundings remain cold, wind whistling through the wooden slats. But inside the barn, the firelight, Ethan's resolute presence, and Norah's tender heart create a vivid, emotionally weighted scene. The audience senses that in the harsh Wild West, courage and loyalty not only save a life, but open the door to healing lonely hearts, laying the foundation for love and hope to follow. Part 5. Sharing Past Wounds. Night fell over the Wild West, the sky stretching like a velvet black canvas, stars twinkling through the gaps of the old barn. The fire flickered and danced across the faces of Ethan Ryder and Norah Hayes, its pale yellow light reflecting in their tired yet expressive eyes. The space was quiet, with only the wind whistling through the slats and the soft clatter of horses in the barn, creating a warm, cinematic atmosphere, as if the entire West had paused to listen to their story. Norah, sitting close to the fire, hugged her knees, trembling yet determined, began to speak of the losses in her life, the long, lonely days, and how life had pushed her to the brink of despair. She spoke of lost loved ones, wrong choices, and the fear of facing cruel people beyond the barn. Her voice was hoarse, sometimes catching, but she dared to open her heart. The audience feels every heartbeat, every rapid breath, living alongside her in each moment of pain. Ethan sat silently, eyes following her every gesture, his calloused hand resting lightly on his knee, gaze deep yet non-judgmental. He spoke no words in haste, interrupted her not, offered no advice. His silence was another way to listen, giving her the sense that all her pain, secrets, and fears were acknowledged and understood. The audience immediately senses the power of this moment, a person's pain recognized without judgment, the first step toward healing. Norah spoke of nights wandering in the snow, moments of abandonment, and the sting of betrayal by those she once trusted. Her voice deepened when recounting dreams seemingly stolen by a harsh life. Yet every word, every heavy breath conveyed her inner courage, the bravery to confront the past, to share pain, to trust in sincere listening. Ethan leaned slightly toward her, the firelight casting warmth over his serious yet gentle face. He nodded lightly as if to confirm, "Everything I hear is real, and no one has the right to judge." This small but powerful gesture moved the audience, showing not only empathy, but also that trust can be built even in the harshest circumstances. The moment of confession reached its emotional peak as Norah broke down in tears, drops running down her cheeks, catching the flickering firelight. The audience felt the release, the shared solitude, the unburdening of pain. Ethan did nothing but sit beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder, signaling that she was no longer alone. The space remained silent, yet the emotional wave inside the barn surged. The flickering firelight, the rustling hay, the heavy breaths, and the beating hearts of both characters created a living rhythm. The audience experienced the climax wounds being acknowledged, trust being restored, hope sprouting in both the characters' hearts and their own. Norah lifted her head, eyes red but sparkling, looking at Ethan, not with fear or caution for the first time. In her gaze were gratitude, trust, and a flicker of hope that her heart could find safety, healing, and connection. Ethan smiled softly, eyes calm yet tender, as if to say, "You were brave, and I will be here with you." The emotional wave peaked as Norah leaned lightly on Ethan's shoulder, both sitting in silence, letting the fire tell its own story, a story of empathy, kindness, and second chances for hearts once broken. The audience exhaled, hearts both tense and relieved, ready to continue the journey with the two characters toward healing and hope in the untamed West. That night, by the fire in the darkness, the story of Norah and Ethan came alive like never before. It was not only about pain and loss, but also about courage, trust in others, and the healing power of listening and empathy. This moment etched itself deeply into the audience's hearts, reminding them that no matter how harsh the West, hearts can open, and healing always begins when someone has the patience to truly listen. Part 6. Rebuilding Trust. The sun began to set, warm golden light streaming through the gaps of the horse barn, falling on dust motes floating in the air. A gentle breeze carried the scent of dry earth and horse leather, creating a scene both simple and cinematic. The last rays of the day illuminated the faces of Norah Hayes and Ethan Ryder, highlighting tension lines softened by hours of firelight, shared tears, and intimate confessions. Norah rolled up her sleeves and lightly tapped a hammer against the rotting barn planks. Ethan stood beside her, guiding her hand, checking the joints, his gaze gentle yet serious. Each hammer, strike, and tap matched the rhythm of their steady breathing, creating a quiet, living music. The audience feels the collaboration between two once lonely people from small gestures. Kindness and patience begin to transform into mutual trust. Next, they tended to the horses, stroking each strand of hair, removing dry weeds, and cleaning hay. Norah carefully groomed a large horse, her gaze meeting Ethan's with a shy smile, as if to say, "You can trust me." Ethan nodded slightly, their eyes meeting in the glow of the sunset, deep, calm, yet tender. The audience senses the bridge of connection forming, where kindness and care become trust and safety. Together they lifted decayed planks to replace them, exchanging encouraging glances and occasional soft smiles. These ordinary acts carried extraordinary meaning. They were not just repairing the barn, but also restoring trust, soothing emotional wounds, embodying the healing Western spirit that Wild West US celebrates. Viewers feel the quiet healing power in everyday life, in simple yet sincere gestures. The emotional wave peaks as Ethan hands Norah the hammer. Their eyes meet in a long, heartfelt moment. She grips it, heart racing but no longer afraid. He stands steadfast, a pillar of support. Each hammer strike, each small smile, each nod becomes a building block of trust. The audience clearly feels the process of healing, unfolding from loneliness to connection, from caution to hope. The wind, the rustling hay, the soft scrape of hooves against the ground all mingle with the warm sunset light, creating a vivid, cinematic atmosphere. The audience feels both tension and relief, tension as two wounded souls face the challenge of building trust, relief in witnessing them create something good together. Night falls, the sunset fades, yet inside the barn, the trust and bond between Ethan and Norah burn bright, like the last embers of fire. This moment impresses upon the audience that in the harsh West, healing is not about grand miracles, but about patience, kindness, and small, meaningful actions. Every nail driven, every plank replaced, every horse brushed becomes a symbol of mending hearts, offering second chances, and allowing love to take root. Viewers experience a subtle but profound emotional climax. Ethan and Norah are not just repairing a barn, they are repairing trust, piece by piece, in a cold Western world that nonetheless harbors sparks of hope and healing. This is the moment the healing Western story comes alive, making the audience unable to look away. Part 7. Quiet Understanding. The Wild West afternoon stretched out under soft golden sunlight, a gentle breeze stirring the dry prairie grass and sending dust motes drifting through the air. The space was so quiet that only the sound of horses chewing, the rustle of dry leaves, and the slow, steady breathing of Ethan Ryder and Norah Hayes could be heard. After days of storms, freezing nights, and emotionally turbulent moments, this was a rare moment of stillness, yet it carried immense weight. The audience immediately senses the difference, no words are needed. Yet both are communicating everything left unspoken. Norah sat on the edge of the hay, her hand resting lightly on the barn wall, eyes fixed on the endless prairie bathed in the evening glow. Ethan stood nearby, hand braced on a beam, his gaze following her. Silence enveloped them, the warm golden light highlighting every line on their faces, each strand of hair lifted by the wind. This silence was far from empty. It carried safety, trust, and a budding connection. The moment they looked at each other without words was crucial. Norah's eyes reflected newfound trust and hope that she was no longer alone in this harsh world. Ethan's gaze, deep and gentle, seemed to say, "You've found shelter, and I will protect you." The audience instantly feels the closeness between them, hearts beginning to intertwine, slow and delicate, like the rhythm of the West itself, syncing with their pulses. They work together to clear fallen hay and debris. Each small gesture meaningful. Norah gathered scattered bundles. Ethan lifted broken boards to replace them. These ordinary acts became expressions of care. Each time their hands brushed while lifting something together, or their eyes met in fleeting glances, the audience felt an electric surge of emotion, from tenderness and shyness to deep, intimate connection. Emotional intensity swelled as Ethan pointed to a crack in the barn wall, eyes serious yet warm. Norah listened, nodding gently, her gaze soft. No words were spoken, but in this silence, the audience sensed trust, respect, and a profound sense of security. This was the emotional climax of the moment where love begins to blossom without a single word. The sunset shifted, golden tones fading to rich orange-red, casting long shadows across their faces and bodies. Every feature, every glance, every movement was observed by the audience, felt like a slow, living melody. Ethan smiled softly as he watched Norah tend to the horse, and she realized the smile was not for the task, but for her the courage and heart she had shown. The surroundings remained calm, yet the emotional waves surged. Viewers felt both the tranquility of the West and the heartbeat of the two characters. Every gesture, every glance, every breath told its own story, emphasizing the healing message. Love grows not just from words, but through understanding, shared experience, and silent acts. Norah paused, looking up at Ethan. The moment stretched endlessly, eyes meeting in silent communion. Ethan gently moved a stray strand of hair from her face and tucked it back, a small gesture, yet full of care. The audience felt a subtle emotional climax, from loneliness and wariness to trust and budding love, from anxiety to safety and tenderness. The wind brushed the prairie, swaying grass and dust into the sunset light. The sound of horses chewing, combined with their steady breathing, created a natural, serene melody. The audience didn't just see the characters, they felt their hearts communicating silently, a delicate, warm, and profound connection. The silence continued. Each moment weighted with meaning. The audience experienced the power of trust, empathy, and love beginning through ordinary gestures. Ethan and Norah understood each other without words, laying the foundation for deep emotions, healing, and hope that would continue to grow in the coming chapters. The emotional crescendo builds silence, becomes an invisible thread drawing two hearts closer, leaving the audience both exhilarated and tender, fully engaged in every gesture and glance. This is the subtle yet powerful pinnacle of the journey in building love and trust, where the healing Western shows the full strength of connection and healing between lonely hearts in the untamed West. Part 8. Facing the Past. The farm was bathed in the warm light of late afternoon, the last rays of the sun turning the rooftops golden and illuminating the pasture and barn. The space was quiet, only the rustle of dry leaves and the horses' breathing filling the air. After many tense days, from freezing nights to silent, meaningful moments by the fire, it was now time for Ethan and Norah to confront the unresolved memories and ghosts of the past. Norah sat on the porch step, hugging her knees, gaze distant across the prairie. Ethan stood beside her, rough yet gentle hands resting on her shoulders, eyes deep and calm. He began to ask softly about her life before this moment, about the losses and wounds she had endured. Norah spoke of nights wandering in the snow, of betrayals by those she had trusted, and of dreams she feared had been stolen. Her voice was hoarse, sometimes catching, yet it was filled with truth and authenticity. Ethan listened without interruption, without judgment, simply looking into her eyes with complete understanding. He shared his own memories of a lost love, mistakes he had never forgotten, and years of solitude. Together, they shared in silence at times, at other times with soft, profound words, creating a space both still and emotionally charged. The audience senses the powerful emotional impact, learning to forgive oneself and others, accepting loss, and rediscovering trust in people and in life. Each story and memory told becomes a building block of trust and heart healing. Ethan's presence and patience help Norah realize she is not alone, that her past no longer controls her future. The emotional peak comes when Norah breaks down, tears streaming down her face, not from despair, but from release. Ethan holds her hand, resting it lightly on her shoulder, his gaze gentle yet steady, conveying that she can begin again, and that kindness and patience can heal even long-held wounds. The audience witnesses their growth, Norah learning to open her heart, face her pain, and trust again. Ethan learning to trust and offer full protection. They walked together around the farm, tidying leftover tools, caring for the horses and barn. each ordinary act repairing the barn, brushing the horses' manes, gathering stray hay symbolized rebuilding trust and healing hearts. The sun's last light faded, yet in their eyes, hope and connection still burned brightly. The audience feels the emotional wave rise from tension and anxiety over past pain to relief and warmth, witnessing growth, forgiveness, and restored trust. Ethan and Norah not only shared memories but also learned to reconcile with the past, turning pain into motivation to move forward, a subtle yet profound emotional climax, characteristic of a healing Western story. Night fell, the light on the barn fading, but the air remained warm from their closeness and understanding. The audience sees clearly that the harsh West tests not only the body, but also the heart. In this moment, they realize that healing begins with trust, forgiveness, and having someone patient enough to stand beside you, listen, and accompany you. Finally, as they returned to the barn, their eyes met without caution or wariness, but with the gaze of two hearts beginning to trust, learning to heal, and ready for a new beginning. The emotional wave reached its peak, the audience feeling the rhythm of breath, heartbeat, and the warm light of the West spreading into their souls, opening a pivotal turning point for the love story and the journey of redemption to come. Part 9. Confession of Hearts night had fully settled over the Wild West, the sky filled with stars, silver moonlight slipping through the gaps of the old barn. The fire flickered, casting soft golden light across the faces of Ethan Ryder and Norah Hayes, creating a space both warm and cinematic. The wind whispered through the prairie, the horses chewing quietly, as if the entire world had paused to make room for the story of their hearts. Norah sat close to the fire, eyes sparkling in the flickering light, fingers lightly brushing the edge of her blanket, heart racing. Ethan faced her, eyes deep, smile gentle yet determined. The silence was so profound that every breath, every heartbeat could be felt. He drew a deep, emotion-laden breath, revealing feelings he had never dared to express in years of solitude. Norah, since I met you, I've felt my heart hasn't been entirely closed. You've made me realize I can still love and be loved again. Norah's eyes widened, heart fluttering with every beat. She said nothing, simply listened, each word piercing the frozen layers around her heart, melting away long-held fear and caution. The audience immediately feels the emotional crescendo, a confession so honest yet delicate, powerful enough to fully open both hearts. Ethan stepped closer, hand gently resting on her shoulder. Eyes tender yet steadfast. I am not perfect. I have made mistakes. Let pain rule my life. But you make me want to atone, to live better, to open myself completely. I love you, Norah. Norah smiled softly, tears glistening, eyes shining with happiness. Her voice trembled but was firm. Ethan, I love you too. I believe in the real you, in the heart that was once hurt but still dares to open. You've shown me that even in this harsh West, true love still exists. That moment erupted in a subtle yet powerful emotional climax. The waves of feeling surged from loneliness and fear to gentleness, trust, and finally, love blossoming. The audience fully experiences the essence of redemption romance, two wounded, once lonely souls now opening completely, exchanging trust and genuine love. The firelight danced across their faces, reflecting happiness and peace. Ethan held Norah's hand, drawing her closer. The distance between them vanished, leaving only shared glances and breaths. Viewers perceive that this is not just a love confession, but a moment where two hearts find redemption and healing, where love saves even the deepest scars. The surroundings remained silent, but emotions surged within the wind, outside now a drumbeat. The horses chewing a gentle rhythm for their growing love, the firelight mirroring the depth of their souls. Ethan and Norah were no longer cautious or fearful, only open hearts in sync, ready to move forward together. Norah leaned lightly on Ethan's shoulder, sitting by the fire in silence, their eyes speaking every unspoken word. The audience feels the peak of emotional resonance: trust, forgiveness, love, and hope converge in a perfect moment, stirring hearts strongly, sinking into every word and image. That night, by firelight and moonlight, Ethan and Norah proved that love not only heals wounds but opens the door to a second chance, making people stronger and courageous enough to love. The audience exhales, hearts full of joy and emotion, ready to follow them into the final part, where all scars are mended and love is celebrated in the untamed West. Part 10. Sunset Ride. Sunset spread across the Wild West prairie, the landscape bathed in brilliant shades of red and orange, light filtering through the grass blades, creating streaks of color that seemed to blaze in the wind. A gentle breeze carried the scent of dry earth and horses, painting a scene both peaceful and full of life. After days of storms, bitter cold, and nights of emotional turmoil, Ethan Ryder and Norah Hayes stood beside their horses, preparing for the final ride of the day, a moment signaling complete harmony between two hearts. They rode side by side across the prairie, shoulder to shoulder, hands intertwined. Ethan held her hand firmly yet gently, his deep eyes radiating happiness and peace. Norah leaned against him, feeling the steady heartbeat of the cowboy who had once been alone but now trusted and loved completely. The audience felt the emotional swell, a profound connection, a sense of safety and joy radiating from the characters' hearts. Together, they looked toward the horizon where the sun slowly set, the red-orange light reflecting on their faces, creating a painted scene warm, tranquil, and filled with hope. The sound of hooves pounding the dry earth, the whisper of the wind, and the rustle of grass blended into a vivid rhythm for this perfect moment. Viewers sensed the emotional high from prior loneliness and fear to safety, love, and deep connection. Before turning back toward the far edge of the prairie, Norah glanced at the repaired barn, offering a shy smile. "You fixed your door." Ethan returned her gaze, a warm smile spreading across his face. "Only thing that really broke that night was my loneliness." The audience sensed a subtle yet powerful climax, a brief dialogue, yet rich with emotional uplift, fully healing two previously wounded hearts. They rode side by side, hands intertwined, their silhouettes framed against the blazing sky like two souls reunited in the untamed West. The last light of day bathed their faces, blending gold, orange, and red with the dry prairie, creating a perfect tableau of love, hope, and healing. Viewers experienced a full emotional release past pain, loss, fear, and loneliness, all healed by love, trust, and compassion. Finally, they stopped on a small hill, gazing out over the endless prairie. Ethan drew Norah closer, his gaze gentle and deep, signaling that they would no longer face life alone. Norah rested her head lightly on his shoulder, feeling safety, happiness, and the sense of a new family forming amidst the Wild West. The audience exhaled, hearts full of emotion. The sunset light and this final action created a warm, complete climax. This was the perfect ending, where all wounds were healed, love and hope radiated, and viewers fully embraced the USP of Wild West US cowboy Lan Lung Yu Bang Su Chuok Loi. Second chances ride in the West. A narrator's voice rang out, deep and resonant. She came to break a door and found a man whose heart never closed. Out here. The West don't heal easy, but when it does, it's forever. Viewers absorb the message true love has the power to heal, opens the door to second chances, and brings light to the loneliest hearts in the Wild West. This final moment was fully transcendent, closing the journey while leaving hope, trust, and warmth intact. As the sunset faded, the prairie stretched silently, leaving only the silhouettes of Ethan and Norah leading their horses back to the barn. The gentle, warm air and remaining golden-orange light reflected in their eyes, reinforcing the story's overarching message. Love and kindness can heal even the loneliest hearts, offering second chances and hope in the untamed West. Not every door needs a key. Sometimes all it takes is someone brave enough to walk in. Cowboy Lan Lung Yu Bang Su Chuok Loi. Second chances ride in the West. This moment was not merely the end of the story, but a reminder to the audience true love has the power to redeem. And sometimes all it takes is courage to open the heart. If this story warmed your heart, share the city you're watching from and leave a rating. See you tonight in the West, where love and kindness always guide the way. The sunset light faded. The wind drifted across the prairie. The horses softly moved, leaving the audience with a lasting sense of warmth and fulfillment, as if their own hearts had been healed alongside Ethan and Norah. This is an open yet hopeful ending, perfectly in line with the healing Western story spirit of Wild West US.
He found peace, not by forgetting his past, but by forgiving